So last time we were talking, you had just been invited by Rosalie, or maybe ordered by Rosalie, to be going to Santa Fe.
I think that's where we're at.
Had you even considered going to Santa Fe before that?
To be perfectly frank about it, until I ran across Harry Miller, the old artist that introduced me to Rosalie, I didn't know that Santa Fe existed, to tell you the truth.
And this was back in the 50s. I don't think hardly anybody did.
No,
I think that's the whole point.
No preconceived notion of what I was getting into, except that I had such confidence and I loved Rosalie so much, and the whole idea of going there and the people she had described, and also the people I had met in Scottsdale. I had met Greer Garson's husband was a customer at the Pink Adobe in Scottsdale, because he knew the Pink Adobe in Santa Fe, and Don Libby, Libby soup guy. I mean, the people was what I was most interested in. Mm-hmm. Had no concept at all of what the town was going to be like. It was a pleasant surprise when I got there.
You didn't go straight from Scottsdale to Santa Fe. You went back to Illinois first, right?
Yeah, what I did is I pulled a trailer with Ray and Rosalie's personal things in it. And their daughter, Priscilla, was living in Albuquerque at the time. After I visited with her and dropped the trailer there, then I headed back to Illinois. I just went back to visit family. I only stayed maybe 2 or 3 days, and that was it. I just headed back as quickly as I could, and I was by myself. And Bob Young, my partner that I started the El Parole with later, and was someplace else that I can't even remember. I think he was finishing up a job in Scottsdale. But I'll never forget turning north. It was old Route 66, don't forget.
Klein's Corners, right?
Klein's Corners. I was just excited from the moment I turned north to head toward Santa Fe. But I'll never forget when I got up to the little road that was the old Las Vegas highway, and I turned to head into Santa Fe. It was about 8 miles or 9 or something. I can't remember how much. When I got to the edge of Santa Fe, it was just like a little narrow street was there. I thought, my God, this is not a city at all. You know, it was College Street. It was not the old Santa Fe Trail or none of the big streets that are there now. So I'll never forget hitting that little street. And it was paved, but just barely, you know. And I remember seeing, suddenly the architecture started to come alive to me. It seemed so different from any place I had ever been. And I remember the big house on the left, I found out later was the home of Winter Benner, the famous poet. Later I met him because his partner was a guy by the name of Bob Hunt. And he came down to the Pink Adobe, would walk down and have lunch there. And he insisted that I go up and meet this important man, and which I'm really glad I did, because he really, really was an incredibly brilliant poet. But anyway, and then continuing on down College Street, there was no Paseo de Peralta. It was not there. And on the right was the old Connie's store, yeah, which was the primo. It was a very special store in Santa Fe.
I know that there's a good story about him and the El Farol, but we'll save that for a little bit later. So keep on going as you're coming into town. Later.
But anyway, the store was there. Across the street was a filling station. And now, of course, all of that's gone now. And then just across the street, which I suppose was the beginning of a Sequia Madre, and just a tiny, tiny street. And, of course, the Roundhouse, the state capitol, was not there. It came about 5 years later, 5 or 6 years later.
It was just a neighborhood, wasn't it?
It was just a little neighborhood. And on the corner, I do remember, I think it was a piano store there. And I believe next to that was a car dealership. And the one house there on the left was a big house that is still there. And it later became Guadalupe Cafe. And then there was a little building behind. And this house is where Bob Young rented this nice house. And the little house behind it, I rented. And then just across the alley where was Tyler Dengie, a very famous, one of the most famous of the photographers in Santa Fe, and his family lived there. Of course, that's all gone and became a Bullring, the big bar and everything now. And then just past that was Salazar's Cafe, which was a wonderful old Mexican restaurant. And in that cafe, the entrance is there's a big, beautiful adobe wall, which is still there, just as it was then. with Harry Miller as one of his murals on it, the guy that introduced me to Santa Fe. So all this is sort of tying together in a way that, that made me feel good to feel at home. But just next to that was the driveway of the pink Adobe.
So it was nighttime when you pulled in?
Nighttime, and it was just across the street, of course, from the oldest church, just directly across the street. And I pulled in that driveway, and on the right was a little outdoor patio that we used in the summer. And on the left was a larger patio that we used in the summer. And at the corner was an old, it's now the Dragon Room, which came much, much later. But that original little Kiva fireplace was there when I got there, stacked full of wood. I spent the first night in that little patio in front of that fireplace, and I just absolutely loved it. It's so amazing how I felt at home for the very first time. And that little table there, even after they built the Dragon Room, and I'd long since left the pink Adobe, that table sort of became our table, where every time we'd sell a house or we'd do something special in our lives, we would go back and have
You mean
sell
you and my mother, and Sue.
Mom, We'd go back there and celebrate. That was our table. And they would always make us stuff that were special, but they no longer had it on the menu. But Joe, I still love that guy as like a brother. He was so sweet and still is. In the back of that little driveway was a little 2-story studio, and had little funky steps going up to the upstairs. That's where I spent my first time when they let me have that studio to live in. It didn't have a bathroom. It had a little fireplace, and it was comfortable, and I loved it. But it was right in back of the pink Adobe, so I had a bathroom there. So
what did you do for a bathroom? You go to the pink Adobe?
I had the bathroom at the pink Adobe.
Okay.
And we really, the whole family there, I think it's the people that I just loved. I was home in maybe the most dysfunctional family in history.